All right, so we've looked at how organisms get their energy. Now we'll look at this. This is limiting factors. You've seen a chart similar to this. This is population growth. So this is deer population in California during these 100 years, 1912 to 2012. And if you'll notice, the population starts going up. Deer hunting is suspended in California. So when you remove the predator for deer, what's the population going to do? It almost doubles. And then they start hunting bucks right here. So maybe that's why it took a turn down. The population went down for whatever reason it did, and then it went back up. And I'm guessing, I don't know this, I don't know that during this time period is when the depression starts kicking in. And so I'm guessing maybe at some point the deer population took a hit because so many people were eating deer, and then it went up. And I'm guessing that this is, again, speculation. So it may not be accurate, but I want you to be able to think through why this might happen. If a lot of the men went to fight World War II, and a lot of the women were working, making money in factories, maybe they didn't eat deer as much, so the population went up. For whatever reason, it dropped. If you'll notice over here, ban on mountain lion hunting. So humans could not hunt mountain lions anymore. So that means the mountain lion population probably went up, which means the deer population started to go down. So I don't know what this looks like now, and it doesn't really matter. You probably don't care about what the population of deer in California is, but I want you to be able to read something like this on a test. You should be able to explain why does the population go up sometimes, or why does the population go down? At least speculate on why that might happen. But limiting factors, like we've already talked about, limiting factors is something that limits the population of a species or a population. So it limits that population. So lack of water or lack of food or increase in predators or decrease in prey, all those things are limiting factors. Just like a bucket with holes in it, you can't fill it up much higher than that bucket for very long. Limiting factors affect how much of a population can stay in an area. And then to a food chain. So we're going to write down what a food chain is. It is a representation. It's not the actual organisms. It doesn't actually show you how the energy is flowing from one organism to the next, but it's a visual representation of how energy flows from one organism to the next. So in really big, well, I mean, not massive, but it needs to be obvious. In really big letters, I want you to write, arrows show energy flow. Arrows show energy flow. Arrows show energy flow. Has a nice rhyme to it. If you'll notice, this plant does not eat the grasshopper. And this is not even saying, the arrow doesn't say that the grasshopper eats the plant. That is what happens. But it's saying that the energy is going from the plant to the grasshopper, from the grasshopper to the shrew or the mouse, from the shrew or the mouse to the carnivore, to the hawk. It's going up the food chain in that way. It's showing the arrows are showing the energy flowing from one organism to the next. The hawk does not give the snake energy. The snake gives the hawk energy. And then here's an example of a food web. You should be able to look at this food web and be able to tell where does the energy from this chipmunk go. So if the hawk or whatever bird of prey this is eats the chipmunk, then the energy goes that way. If the fox eats it, then it goes this way. But the problem with this is it doesn't show everything that could happen. This chipmunk doesn't only have to look out for a fox and a hawk. There are probably snakes that eat it. There's probably multiple birds of prey. There might be humans that eat it. There might be, there's a whole host of different things that could eat a chipmunk. A chipmunk doesn't just look after this bird of prey and this fox. So food webs can be very simplistic like this. What are these? Are these food chains or these food webs? These are a chain linked from one link to the next. So if you'll imagine, here's one that's a grassland food chain, a forest food chain, a lake food chain, and then decomposing food chain. These food chains you could easily put into a web onto a piece of paper, and you could show that an eagle eats larger fish or medium fish. Eagle might eat a cat. A wolf might eat a weasel. A shrew might eat some of these leaves, or I don't know, a shrew might eat some kind of caterpillar or a small fish if it can catch it. So these food chains overlap, even though they're different areas, grassland, forest, and lake, they overlap. A tree might fall into the pond, so it's decomposing, and other fish are eating the algae that are on that branch that's growing on the branch. So there's a whole these food chains can overlap, and that would make a food web. So again, here's a food web. Do you think that a rabbit only has to look out for a cougar and a fox? No, it has to look out for a bunch of other organisms. So this food chain is child's play. When a grown man's food chain, that looks like this, or a grown woman's food chain looks like this. This is a legit food web. I mean, I said food chain, food web. So this says a tuna. This tuna has several arrows going to it and should have several arrows going away from it. The reason this is so confusing is because that's how ecology works. That's how an ecosystem works. You could get eaten by a fish you've never seen before, or a bird that you didn't know even existed. You didn't know what a bird was. You've never heard of a bird. But when you swam up to the top of the water, a bird dove into the water 10 feet down and ate you. So these are birds up here. Down here generally is the bottom of the food chain. You got things like algae, some kind of producers, or thing that eat detrivores or eat detritus, the stuff that just floats down. Salmon are up here. Larger fish start coming up here. Then up here you have whales and seals, porpoise, sharks, larger top predators up here normally. Or on this one there is. So this is a more accurate food web. When I have you make a food web, this is what you have to make. No, I'm just kidding. No, you can make one that looks like this. Simple food web. But I just want you to know that it is not completely accurate. Anyway, last thing, energy pyramid. Now this is kind of hard to show on the slide. But a energy pyramid shows energy flow, but it shows how energy is lost from, so stop taking notes for a second. An energy pyramid, not a food pyramid, energy pyramid, it's really big at the bottom because that's producers have a lot of energy. As you go to the next step, a lot of that energy is lost, and it's actually more than what this pyramid shows. You go to the next step, it's lost. It goes to the next step, it's lost. So if you think about what this plant does not exist just for these prairie dogs. It doesn't go through photosynthesis thinking, I need to store up energy so this prairie dog can live whenever it eats me. The prairie dog doesn't go around stressed out about food and reproducing because it knows that there's a group of coyotes that's going to come around and eat them one day. And like, hey, I need to get really fat for this coyote. If you were to go to a trip to Alaska and get eaten by a grizzly bear, and the grizzly bear ate every bit of you, the week before, you probably weren't thinking, I need to eat more McDonald's, or I need to eat more fatty food, or I need to eat more potato chips so that when that grizzly bear eats me, it gets a lot of energy. No, the reason that organisms, aside from humans maybe, but the reason that organisms eat is so that we can maintain, the word that should pop into your head is homeostasis. It maintains homeostasis. So this grass, these producers are busy growing roots, growing seeds, growing leaves, staying alive. And most of the energy that it gets from the sun is used doing that. So the prairie dog eats it, it's only eating like 10% of what that plant has actually had to make. So let's go to this slide. You got producers, 10,000 kilocalories, or calories is what we call it. 10,000 kilocalories here. By the time the rabbit eats some of the grass or whatever the producers are, it's only going to get about 1,000 calories. 90% of it is getting lost to maintain homeostasis. So just like back here in this example, the prairie dogs are busy burrowing. They're using their muscles to dig in the dirt and doing all kind of other stuff. They're not worried about the coyotes eating them. In this case, the rabbit is not worried about the snake eating it as far as like, this is why I've got to eat so the snake can eat me. It loses its energy through heat loss, through maintaining homeostasis. And so an energy pyramid looks more like this. It's kind of a curved line. Looks kind of like exponential growth or decay. But this is an energy pyramid. It shows energy loss for each step of the food chain.